The second aspect of our subject, living in two worlds, is do not adhere to the earthly. We should not bind ourselves to a world that is not our home and that we shall have to leave very soon. Each attachment to material things or pleasures puts a burden on our spiritual being and obstructs our ascent. The Eastern wisdom refers to the entire material world as Maya, in illusion. That is for the Westerner at first sight difficult to understand. Why should something solid, material, that I can touch be an illusion? The answer is matter is subject to constant change and, above all, transient. That what you can see and touch today will no longer exist tomorrow. It is, therefore, for an eternal pilgrim, not a factor seriously to be taken into account. One can write a significant book on the relativity of physical reactions. One can gather facts from various fields to prove that among the decisive factors, the physical are the least important. Plato's allegory of the cave teaches everyone enters the path as a prisoner of his own illusory ego and of the illusion of the world. He must free himself step by step from this prison and advance to the essential, to the eternal spiritual reality. A contemporary version of this knowledge provides the brilliant movie Matrix, which depicts the lives of human beings in an illusory world from which they have to free themselves. Whoever strives for earthly matters turns his energy on things which are not worth the effort. Do not allow the petty everyday matters to dominate your life. They must not divert you from the great work of advancing the evolution and creating the new man and the new world. The ascending spirit must constantly bear in mind the necessity to break away from the attachments to everyday life. He who is dealing too much with the odds and ends is limiting and belittling himself. The details of daily routine reduce weak minds to ordinariness. The perishable things are but a hindrance to him who strives upwards to the eternal spiritual world. Small actions and small things obstruct life. There are far too many great things to do as to allow us to waste time and energy on insignificant matters. The battle is so great that it is impossible to allot time to ordinary occupations. People constantly run the risk of forgetting the essential in the exciting worldly turmoil. Humanity has been so imbued with respect for the transitory that it has forgotten about the eternal. Jesus said, "No man can serve two masters." That means we need to decide between matter and spirit, between the worldly ways and the spiritual path. Man cannot serve the beast within himself and serve his higher self, his God, at the same time. We have to give up the striving for earthly wealth and pleasures if we want to gain the treasures in heaven. Whatever of lasting good comes, we pay the price for it in some way. If we gain spiritual wisdom, we have paid the price in material sacrifices of some kind. If we gain the inner life, we have paid in some degree in terms of the outer life. He who dedicates himself to material matters will remain spiritually poor. Our present time provides the best example, materially in abundance and spiritually in poverty. Whoever looks for value in the material world is a pauper in the higher world. The immortal withdraws from the profiteering of the world. He needs little. He cannot take part in the lunatic chase for perishable goods or pleasures. He will not sell his soul for such trinkets. Life has been turned into a business, but who of the teachers of life has ever been a businessman? He cannot work for institutions which pursue objectives hostile to the spirit, or which are operating in a way incompatible with spiritual principles. He must not become a cog in a system which is based upon the destruction of the earth, the exploitation of people, and the mistreatment of animals and plants. I shall designate the path for the battle against the businessmen of this world. The spiritual fighter must beware that he does not lend his hand in the ongoing battle to the wrong side, to the camp of materialism, to the enemies of the spirit. The poison of today's time is sweet. That makes it so dangerous. We no longer recognize that it is harmful. Distraction is an awful poison to the spirit. It moves us away from our higher self, which we can approach only by concentration. People substitute distractions for concentration, but was dissipation ordained? Everywhere action was ordered, but not the chaos of scattering. Material pleasures do not quench the thirst of the soul. What he, the real man, the real woman, desires above all else is God, and nothing less will satisfy. In view of the immense tasks, light-mindedness and wasting of energy are inappropriate. You are quite right in your feelings. There can be no merriment while earth cries out from the burden of calamities. While hunger exists, there can be no gluttony. And what kind of dances can be performed against a background of violence? Truly, I say that merriment is indecent in these days of calamity. Secular forces which are directed to distraction instead of concentration, to pleasure instead of service, to greed instead of frugality, to looseness instead of obedience, to arbitrariness instead of compulsoriness, to selfishness instead of selflessness, are actually enemies from whom you should stay away and against whom you need to protect yourself. None of these influences must ever gain power over you. A disciple will never gain the necessary command over his own tendency toward instability until he recognizes the truth that the one who would swerve him from the path of duty he has undertaken is his worst enemy. You need to separate yourself, at least in your heart, from all those fellow men who do not walk the spiritual path. They disturb your work. They lead you into temptation. They infect you with their bad habits and divert you from your path. If you get too much involved with the aspirations and pleasures of their earthbound, selfish lives, you will inevitably get caught in these entanglements. Countless are those who want to impose upon people their most degraded thoughts. To that what you need to leave behind on the path belong the bonds of family, friends, and relatives. You will have no choice but to let go in spirit of all humans who walk the other, the worldly way. Them, too, you can bring help only from the new, higher standpoint. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. This is not heartless as it may appear. Exactly the closest circle of family and friends may represent the greatest threat to the spiritual disciple. It tends, by its very nature, to approach you every day with a great variety of temporal, selfish concerns, and thereby divert you from your trail. That whirling, showy, glittering world, full of insatiable ambition, where family and the state parcel out between them a man's nobler nature as two tigers a carcass, and leave him without hope or light. We had already said, a real, holy family can only be formed with your soulmates. Among your blood relatives may even be enemies. I agree that the words of Christ, "If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children, etc., sound cruel. Should we not ascribe this phraseology to those who write it down, or perhaps translated it? But nevertheless, the inner sense is clear. If man serves his family more than he serves the spirit of the teaching of good, what good will come of it?